Hi. So, as someone who claims to be such a bastion of freedom of speech, why do you call the protesters outside terrorists, outside of, say, one broken window?
Well, it's more than one broken window. Assaulting cops, spray painting, the death threats that they throw at me, the violent intimidation, the graffiti.
But that's not, don't you think it's bigoted to call all protesters who are outside as terrorists when a handful of minority might be representing some
Wait, why would it be
violent
bigoted?
acts?
They're mostly white liberals without jobs.
Sorry?
Why is it bigoted? They're mostly white liberals without jobs.
But you're calling all protesters terrorists?
I'm calling Antifa out there that are anonymizing their identity, sending death threats to my family, smashing windows, and spray painting the campus the entire week leading up to this. Terrorists. Yes, I absolutely stand by that.
But so that wouldn't. A lot of them are just college students who don't agree with the point of view that you're propagating.
Well, maybe
today.
they should have come to the front of the line and asked a question like you, and not acted like somebody in a third world country where they settle their differences with gang violence.
But just to be sure, those people who are there to register their protest aren't terrorists.
Okay, the terrorist definition is a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Did they do that?
I don't think so.
Wait, hold on. A person who
I was there.
unlawfully violent, window smashing, graffiti, assault
Not
against
all of
police
them.
officers.
Not
Okay.
all of them.
Hold on a second. The leaders, they cover for themselves. And by the way, only a small of them are isolated, and they're all in one big black block. And don't try to gaslight the people here or the people watching online. There's hundreds of them. They're working in a coordinated network with coordinated tactics. And these are not just quote-unquote college kids. There's obviously somebody behind this with funding and sophistication, with quasi-paramilitary tactics. And let me ask you a question. Why is it that when people go into the United States Capitol and take a selfie, they're called terrorists by our government, but when you start to terrorize and smash windows and put violent threats and death threats to me, it's somehow bigoted to call them terrorists?
So first of all, it wasn't a coordinated effort. As someone who was there, I just knew that there was this event happening and that there would be a protest in order to register our point of view. I was not part of any coordinated effort, and neither were a lot of the other people who were there. We don't appreciate the label of being terrorists, especially a lot of us are from countries where
you shouldn't appreciate the
so.
label or the activity. Why don't you come here and say, I'm pretty damn embarrassed that people that agree with me resort to violence instead of going up here and trying to lecture me about calling them terrorists?
Absolutely. But this isn't about...
You're making a fool of yourself. Why don't you go out and talk to your buddies and tell them to stop trying to shut down our event?
So I don't know why your response is always a whataboutism. I mean, I'm just asking
I'm asking questions you can't answer ism.
What? I've answered each of your questions. I'm just saying.
No,
that
let me ask you a
not
question.
Everyone is part
let
of
me
a
ask you a question.
coordinated
Will you publicly condemn the violence done in the political spirit outside by the people that you were protesting alongside? Will you do that right now?
It depends what you're referring to.
Smashing of windows and assaulting police officers.
Breaking windows is a good idea.
Assaulting police officers. Do you condemn that?
No one assaulted police officers.
You what?
I was there. No one assaulted police officers.
That's a lie. That's not true. Throwing eggs and objects at police officers is a legal definition of assault, no matter how much you try to gaslight it or spin it.
If I can just, without resorting to whataboutism, using your definition of terrorism, if the police uses unjust violence against civilians, should that also count as terrorism?
Absolutely not. But first of all, your definition of unjust...
I'm just taking your definition of
No.
terrorism.
Let me read this again. Unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. Antifa doesn't just do this here. They did this in Sacramento and assaulted one of our Turning Point USA employees and sent one of them to the hospital. Antifa, oh, by the way, the same buddies, the same tactics, the same coordination, the same wardrobe, the same language, the same signs. You know what they did 2 weeks ago? They arson and firebombed an entire police training headquarters in Georgia in massive coordinated fashion. And so right now what we are seeing is the rise of left-wing domestic violent extremism, and the failure to acknowledge or admit it means that you are blinded by ideology. Thank you for being here tonight. We'll get to the next one.